Hold on a minute. There we go. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so let me share my screen and we will get going. Navigate screens, it's a little convoluted. There we go. All right, so are you all seeing my notes page? You're seeing just the regular thing you should see. You're all good. Okay, so we're going to be talking about AI for accessibility. What we need to start with, however, is thinking about sort of, again, this is a part of a webinar series. So if you didn't have the chance to see the video recording of Intro to AI, I encourage you to do that. So I go over some of the fundamentals of the different types of AI, what it is, what it isn't, and how much you are, each of us are already using it, whether we're aware of it or not. Today's webinar is focusing on AI for accessibility, and then we'll move through in the next 3 months looking at engagement, executive functioning, and assessment. So if you did have a chance to watch the recorded video, um, we talked about AI as sort of a overarching concept with two other concepts inside of it. And so I want to give a second if you can mentally try to remember what those three aspects were. So AI, artificial intelligence, is that overarching sort of umbrella term that it's referring to the ability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. So artificial intelligence, it's again imitating human behavior. I like to think of it as augmented intelligence versus artificial intelligence in order to really keep the people at the center of it. Because all of this, at least where our technology is right now, requires human oversight, some to more degree than in others. Within that large umbrella of artificial intelligence, there's a sort of subgroup of machine learning, and that's the application of that artificial intelligence that allows a system to automatically learn and improve from prior experiences. And then finally, there's deep learning. And deep learning is a type of machine learning that uses complex algorithms and deep neural nets to train a model. So if a lot of those words you're like, I don't know, we're not fishing, what kind of nets? Who are we training? Then I encourage you to watch the first webinar where we sort of unpack what those words mean, because this may feel very, I don't know about you all, but in my education training, I had a class in educational technology. I think I'm fairly well versed in things, but in learning about AI, it's been a whole other way of thinking about things and way more jargon than I'm used to. A quick way to think about AI also is automation based on association. So it's a way for a machine to imitate human behavior, but it's automating it based on the association, based on the patterns that it receives. Something that's particularly important to point out today, and when we're talking about accessibility, is that AI is always a type of technology. But not all technology includes artificial intelligence, right? So I want us to contrast the features of a traditional technology tool, many of which we are extremely comfortable. Some of you might be like me, the generation that's called digital natives. Um, and then contrast that with what we mean by AI-powered technology tools. So first, when we look at the functionality, traditional technology tools follow explicit pre-programmed rules. They do what they are told to do. And that has been the case up until more recently, that computers can only do what they've been trained to do. That is not the case anymore. AI-powered tools can learn from data and adapt and improve over time. When it comes to decision making, traditional technology tools execute fixed instructions without deviation. So if you tell your mouse to point and click on something, it is going to do that. If you um, record a video, press play on the video, it's going to do those things. However, AI-powered technology tools are going to use that machine learning, being able to interpret patterns in order to analyze a pattern and make a prediction. So, for example, rather than, I can go into Netflix and I can search for a particular um, show. What were we watching this morning? Super Kitties, I believe, was what my 5-year-old wanted. And so I could go in and hit search, or I can use the voice remote, which is AI, because that's natural language processing. Um, or we can go into Netflix and it just has the suggested um, shows for you, right? And they have the suggested shows based on profile. So that's using machine learning to look at patterns, not just of your user account, but also of time of day. The user interaction, when it comes to traditional technology tools, it generally requires some sort of direct input, but AI-powered tools can begin to anticipate user needs and automate tasks. How many of you have I won't say the word out loud, Alexa, type device, or Google's version of that, that says, hey, I can set a morning routine for you. Would you like me to set an alarm every morning at blah, blah, blah? Do you want me to tell you the weather every morning at 7:30? I get in my car and my Google Maps automatically pulls up, 18 minutes to home because of the patterns that it's able to predict. Adaptability, generally the only way that our tech tools change is if a person went in and updated them. That's why forever we've needed these continual app updates, or man, Microsoft products, they will just crash and force you to update them if you click the ignore updates long enough. Don't ask me how I know. And the AI powered tools, so they may be able to continually update and refine their responses based on new data without someone having to go in and say, hey, this is a bug, you need to fix it. So a couple examples of traditional technology tools: spell checkers, screen readers, text magnifiers. Now we have AI-powered grammar checkers like Grammarly, voice assistants like Siri, or Google Assistant, or Alexa, and predictive text tools. So traditional technology tools do have accessibility features. We'll talk in a bit about the legal requirements for accessibility features, and that has been a feature or requirement for a long time. What's different now with AI-powered tools is that you can personalize accessibility features based on a specific user preference and behavior. So again, automation being the benefit. So there's three important concepts that I want to distinguish between each other. If you've attended any of my webinars before, you know that words and word choice and being intentional in word choices and explaining what I mean is really important to me. So the three concepts that we'll be circling around today are accessibility, accommodations, and assistive technology. Okay, so we've talked about artificial intelligence, AI. AI can be used for accessibility. It can be used to provide accommodations. It can be a part of assistive technology, right? It is the function of the tech tool, and it can do any of these things. So as far as accessibility, what's the definition of that? It just means designing an environment and content that can be usable for everyone from the start. So people think of it as being proactive. It's thinking from the start. I don't have to wait for someone to ask me, oh, can you go in and program this so that the text size is bigger for me? Um, it's automatically there. It's universal. So for example, closed captions playing automatically. As far as accommodations, that is making a change to existing environment, task, or policy to meet an individual's needs. So that's more reactive. We already have our um, uh, system established, we have our procedures established, we have the assignment, as created, and now I need to consider what might be some barriers of individuals and how can I give them accommodations. For example, reading a math test aloud for a student who has dyslexia. You're not offering to read it aloud for everyone. In this case, it is an accommodation for an individual. And finally, assistive technology are any devices or tools that help individuals with disabilities perform tasks. They can be high tech, they can be very low tech. It can be low tech as simple as a pencil grip, or an adaptive pencil, an adaptive mouse or keyboard, or it can be very complex things. And so accessibility, thinking about that as the design of the learning environment, materials, and instructions to ensure all students have equitable opportunities to participate, engage, and succeed. Now, when we talk about access, there's two types of access or two types of accessibility, direct and indirect. Direct accessibility or direct access means that me as the individual user can select an option or interact with a feature using built-in accessibility features. So I'm going to show you lots of different built-in accessibility features, for example, on Google platforms and within Microsoft products. And so, having keyboard shortcuts, uh, Control C, Control or Command C, Control V in when you're using a Mac for copy and paste. There are tons of keyboard shortcuts, and those are accessibility built-in direct access accessibility features. Even I have this picture of a man in a wheelchair, and he has his head being supported. And I'm going to make the assumption, or the reason I selected this photo is because he might be using either an adaptive mouse or eye gaze in order to make direct selections on the screen. So any computer or device that has a front-facing camera, you can turn that into a eye gaze device. I actually prefer to you open up and tell it sort of what point to use for control. So I usually taught my students to use their nose wherever they have the best control over, and you then are able to control your mouse with your face and with your nose. That doesn't cost anything. That's nothing extra. That is a built-in accessibility feature. Indirect access, on the other hand, is you have to have some sort of intermediary method or device to navigate and choose options. These are generally with people who have significant cognitive disabilities or significant physical impairments, things that are going to prevent them from even being able to use an adaptive mouse or eye gaze. So these are called scanning devices or switches. So in the photo that you see here, this scanning device goes through features, and then you can use the other switch to select. So when it comes to accessibility, often I may ask or ask a student, is this accessible? So is this, new tool accessible? Is this platform accessible? What aspects of this curriculum are accessible? Is this something that I should invest my time in? And the way that we determine that is, can the person with the disability obtain the information or engage with it as fully, equally, and independently as a person without a disability? So, for example, now that we have speech to text, you could have an individual who would not be able to type out their responses, but they can speak their responses, and the assistive technology that can then, with AI, can then take it from the voice to text. So in that case, yes, that would make it accessible. But without that feature, no. So a question I have for you all, so I would love if anyone wanted to put into the chat, or you can also feel free to unmute. What accessibility challenges have you encountered when teaching adult learners with disabilities? So this can either be your own accessibility challenges or those that you have observed in others. So feel free to unmute, or you can type it into the chat. All right, okay. Teaching blind students geometry is definitely going to have, I think most math concepts have a lot of barriers, particularly when we think about geometry and visual spatial reasoning. Access to the technology, right? So there might be great tech-based accessibility tools or assistive technology tools, but there's a barrier to access to the tech, and also increasingly barrier to high-speed Wi-Fi is a significant barrier, because a lot of these features, particularly when they're AI powered, rely on internet access. All right, I'm going to play a video featuring some young adults with disabilities. And as that's going, feel free to keep populating some of these challenges into the chat.
Hello there! Last month I talked about accessibility a bit. We have to make accessible spaces a standard. If people were barred from accessing certain spaces, or videos, or images online, there would be an uproar. But oftentimes, disability is placed on the back burner. And when I talk about accessibility, I'm not just talking about ramps. Accessibility means different things to different people.
My name is James Rath, and I'm legally blind.
Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm autistic.
I'm Annie Sagara, and I have a disability that causes severe chronic pain, and I am a wheelchair user.
For me, accessibility means giving access to things that able-bodied people can receive.
To me, accessibility means making sure you always have a clear path and enough space between hallway walls and doorways for all kinds of people to move through with ease.
For me, accessibility means having large print, and I don't mean your large print, but very large print signs, so that I can actually see them 5 feet away, maybe?
To me, accessibility means sensory-friendly areas.
It means being able to enjoy online content like everybody else.
For me, accessibility means allow me to reasonably accommodate myself.
It means making sure your ramps are not at a completely ridiculous incline, which makes it nearly impossible for someone to wheel up on their own.
It means disability-trained staff.
It means being able to know what's going on at the airport and on the airplane when something happens.
Accessibility means when I'm in a public store or establishment, make sure it's organized. Things aren't cluttered and there's not a lot of mashing colors, because for me, my eyes move constantly in a vertigo effect, and if things are sort of cluttered together, I can't make anything out.
No surprise noises, large crowds, bright lights, or chaotic noise.
It means having closed captioning on films at school when you're being told to take notes during a film during class, and not having the teacher publicly ridicule you in front of the class and reread your incomplete sentences so that everyone can make fun of you because you couldn't understand the film without captions.
For me, accessibility means allow me to pinch to zoom on your mobile site, whether that means having the desktop site visibly available or enabling the pinch to zoom on your mobile site.
It means having at least one handicapped spot near your location, but more is definitely better.
It means warning me before something alarming happens.
It means not being shoved aside during job interviews.
For me, accessibility means natively allow me to change the contrast or the font size on your website.
It means flush ramps for those small steps that you might not notice if you're able-bodied. But I notice them.
It means having earplugs available.
It means not getting hit in the behind with the shopping cart when you're out shopping and being given a dirty look because you didn't hear them say excuse me.
For me, accessibility means don't disable secondary or right-click with a JavaScript code on your website. Some websites like to disable the ability to copy text from their site and paste it somewhere else, or highlight and take it and post it on your website, and that's to prevent theft. However, that also takes away the ability for me to highlight your website and have my computer read it to me.
Hello there.
All right. I hope that that was helpful to see a couple examples. And probably there could have been a 2-hour video if we included other folks. But the important thing is that what makes something accessible or inaccessible is dependent on an individual. And so a piece of accessibility is particularly when you're a classroom instructor or even an administrator over a school site, is asking individuals what are barriers that you're experiencing, teaching and reinforcing them to self-advocate. So when they experience difficulties and frustrations, that they bring it up so that maybe there can be some problem solving. This relates to, I believe it was last year, 2 years ago, we had a webinar on self-determination and the importance of self-advocacy. And so my first sort of tip or thing to consider is to make sure that you're talking with your students and that you've created a classroom atmosphere where they can let you know what barriers they're experiencing. So maybe we can proactively plan for that. At the same time, it might be that they aren't even aware it's a barrier, that it's something that they have struggled with forever, that's always been difficult. And so they don't maybe bring it up because they don't know there's an alternative. For example, knowing that while they may not have a computer or a laptop at home, if they have a smartphone, it has many accessibility features built in. I saw some extra comments in the chat about challenges, note takers and scribes not showing up. AI has mostly alleviated the need for a note taker or scribe. It can do that perhaps better. Students not having the technology they need at home is also definitely a barrier, or limited English proficiency and a learning disability. So now we have that language doubling down, but I'll show you some tools that can, free tools that can make that accessible, both by reducing the reading level of text, condensing and simplifying text, as well as having things like picture dictionaries or automatic translation. So US laws, multiple US laws, ensure that people, our US citizens, have access to education, employment, digital content, and public accommodations. So I'm going to briefly go through these variety of laws, starting with Americans with Disabilities Act. Oops. So the Americans with Disabilities Act covers employment, public service, public accommodations, telecommunications, and commercial facilities. So some of these laws only apply to entities that are receiving federal funds. Others apply broadly. So the Americans with Disabilities Act applies regardless of whether an entity receives federal funding or not. So this applies at the bank, this applies at a community college, this applies at a restaurant. The purpose is to prohibit discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life. And there's two aspects of it related to accessibility. First is Title II. So Title II requires states and local government agencies to provide accessible programs and services. And then Title III mandates that businesses and organizations open to the public are accessible. So this is where mandates for things like Braille on door signs and ramps and elevator accommodations. And then finally, digital accessibility. So while digital accessibility wasn't even a consideration when ADA was first passed, courts have now determined that it also applies to digital tools and websites. Here I have requiring compliance with WCAG, which I'll talk about what that is in a moment. Next, we have the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. And so IDEA, the scope of that only covers public schools serving students from, well, birth really, but 3 to 21 that receive federal funding. So this does not apply to private schools. So when students with disabilities use something like a voucher program to go to a private school, IDEA does not apply to that private school. So that private school does not have to provide any of the accommodations, assistive technology, any of the things that I'm talking about. So while that school might be receiving public funds in the form of a voucher or scholarship, IDEA does not apply to them. The students do not have their same rights. Essentially, parents have to sign away their rights under IDEA in order to take those forms of payment assistance. The purpose of IDEA is to ensure free and appropriate public education, FAPE, for students with disabilities in K-12 settings. That means equal access to educational opportunities at no cost to the families. Every student who is eligible for special education services under IDEA has an IEP developed, an individualized education plan. It specifies what specially designed instruction they need, potentially related services. So do they need speech therapy, occupational therapy, accommodations, modifications, and assistive technology. So assistive technology specifically, each IEP team for every single student, no matter what the disability is, there's a box. And they have to check yes or no as far as is assistive technology needed. So while it might not always fall under someone's radar, they think, oh, it's an automatic no, that's supposed to be discussed at every IEP meeting. And then finally, materials have to be accessible. So IDEA isn't the only law that requires accessible materials, but it is included there that schools have to provide accessible textbooks, digital content, and educational materials. For example, in the case of geometry or math, for students with visual impairments, that material would need to be made accessible via raised line, graphics, embossing, Braille, Nemeth code, things like that. So noting here that IDEA talks about both accommodations, assistive technology, and accessible materials. So let's watch this video that talks about what is assistive technology.
We all like to do things, like color, and read, and use a computer. It's how we play, learn, work, and get things done. But when a disability makes it hard to do something we'd like to do, we need a little help. Luckily, there's a solution. Welcome to Simply Said, Understanding Assistive Technology. Assistive technology, or AT, is anything that helps you do something you couldn't do otherwise, like walk, run, communicate, and more. These helpful tools can be as simple as a foam grip that makes it possible for a child to grasp a crayon and create art, as common as glasses that make it possible for a student to read and learn, or as sophisticated as software that makes it possible for an employee to convert their spoken word to text on a computer screen and succeed. Whether you're young or old, male or female, whether you've had a disability from birth or developed one over the years, AT can help. Finding AT is easier than you might think. Every state has an Assistive Technology Act program to help you find AT. In Minnesota, it's called the STAR program. You can find it at starprogram.state.mn.us. To find a program like STAR in another state, check out the Association of Assistive Technology Act programs at ataporg.org. There are also many AT centers, including Pacer's Simon Technology Center, that you can find at pacer.org/STC. The STC's consultants help you explore the numerous technology options available. Its lending library lets you try different kinds of AT to discover what works best for you. So now you know a little bit about AT. It helps you do something that you couldn't do without it, and it's available in every state. We all like to.
All right, so hopefully that helped. And every state, so Florida as well. Here in Florida, it is called FAST, FAAST, Florida Alliance on Assistive Services and Technology. And I've made a note that I will add the link to this presentation before I share it with Dave to share out with you all. But again, it's called FAST, the Florida Alliance for Assistive Services and Technology. If assistive technology is something that you are interested in or want to know more about, the U.S. Department of Ed last January came out with this guide, Myths and Facts Surrounding Assistive Technology Devices and Services. And so this might be a good resource to go to, particularly if you support any students who are still have IEPs, those below 21. Okay, so continuing with our legal requirements for accessibility is Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. So there's two components here, Section 504 as well as Section 508. The scope. So this applies to all federally funded programs and institutions, including public schools, universities, and government agencies. So the anyone who accepts federal funds, so this could be Florida State University as a public university, this could be University of Miami as a private university. It doesn't matter as long as you're accepting any federal funds. Then you must comply with Section 504. So the requirements here is it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities and ensures equal access to programs and services and activities. So if someone has a recognized documented disability, they can go to the disability services, whatever the wording might be called, to get official accommodations on file. Educational institutions and government programs have to provide accommodations to people with documented disabilities. So for example, providing sign language interpreters at trainings for a school district or a community college, providing live captioning if needed. Those are all examples of things that are under Section 504. Section 508 applies to federally funded programs and institutions. It's the same thing, but it mandates that federal websites, software, and digital content be accessible to people with disabilities. So if you're accepting federal funds, you have to be what's called Section 508 compliant. So that's where this comes from. And there are web content accessibility guidelines, that's in a few slides, that are semi-frequently updated. So the web content accessibility guidelines. This is an international standard. This is not a law. This is an international standard for web accessibility, but it is used as a benchmark in laws. It is what laws refer to when they say it needs to be accessible, it needs to meet these standards. So it's used in 508, ADA compliance, and then also in the European Accessibility Act. There's four sort of principles to determine if something accessible. It needs to be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And there, like I said, there have been these different versions. So 2008, 2018, 2023 updates. Oh, did I skip one? No, okay. And then we have the Higher Education Opportunity Act. So this applies to colleges and universities receiving federal funding, both public and private. And so again, doesn't matter if you're Florida State University, Tallahassee State College, Bethune-Cookman, or University of Miami. If you are receiving any federal funds, then this applies to you. And it has a requirement for people with disabilities have to have accessible instructional materials, digital resources, and equal access to educational opportunities. Now, what's interesting here, you might say, why do we need that? Because if the institution receives federal funds, then they are required to provide reasonable accommodations through ADA, through Section 504, through Section 508. But notice that this is broader, and it's saying that it has to be available to everyone. It's not necessarily just based on individual accommodation. So as things like your online learning courses have to be accessible, any learning management systems, so if you use Canvas or Blackboard or, there's so many of them, Moodle, and any electronic textbooks have to meet those standards. So there are layers of protection within the laws related to accessibility. And then I believe this is the last one, is the 21st Century Communications, Video, and Accessibility Act. So this covers telecommunications, video, content, digital media broadly in the US, and it ensures that modern communication technologies are accessible. It mandates closed captioning and audio descriptions for television and online video content, and requires accessible user interfaces, so that things like your smartphone can be controlled with assistive technology devices. It was so interesting. Just last week, my 5-year-old discovered what scribed audio was because somehow that had gotten turned on. And she kept telling me, Mom, there's extra voices. There's extra voices. And I wasn't really paying attention. And then when I went in there, I realized, oh, it has the audio descriptions where it's that sort of back voice that's describing what's happening on screen for somebody who has a visual impairment. It's also required that movie theaters have options for that. So the bottom line, what I hope you took away from our 20 minutes or so through legal requirements, is that accessibility is a right, not a privilege. So every individual has the right for the materials they use in an educational institution to be accessible to them. And before the technological innovations, especially just those we've had in the past 5 or 10 years, that was very burdensome for instructors. That is our job, but it could be very difficult. And so what I'm hoping to shed a little bit of light on today is how AI tools can help with accessibility and accommodations. But bottom line, I hope you get is that accessibility is a right, a protected right against multiple by multiple laws. And so in order for that right to be taken away, multiple laws would have to change. So let's go through, again, I like to be precise and we're thinking about the differences between things. Let's think about what's the difference between something being accessible and an accommodation. So we think about accessibility ahead of time. It is intended to be put in place before a barrier exists. So I am designing a website and I am making sure that it is accessible on both a mobile device and desktop. Not, oh, people are having problems, and so I'm going to give this one person that ability. If it's accommodations, on the other hand, are sort of applied after a barrier is identified or when there's an official disability, right? So who benefits? When it comes to accessibility, everyone benefits because it's not based on an individual need necessarily. These are just features that are built in, they're universal. So I'll be making ties throughout the webinar series between AI and thinking about AI within the framework of universal design for learning and how it can help us make sure that we're providing lots of ways for students to engage with content and to show what they know. So accommodations that were only provided if the individual requests it or requires it. Who's responsible? Well, accessibility, it's on the institution, right? It's all those laws where if the institution receives federal funds, or this just applies to, every business built now in the United States has to be like wheelchair accessible, for example. So it's the institution, instructor, system that has to ensure accessibility. For accommodations, once students leave K-12, so under IDEA, it is still the institution and the instructor's responsibility to make sure that those accommodations are provided. But because that's an entitlement program, things like accommodations in post-secondary or the classes that you all teach, they are eligible for those accommodations. And so it is on the individual student to advocate for their needs. For example, to disclose they have a disability, go into whatever disability resource office there is. So the legal basis for accessibility is ADA in Section 508. And for accommodations, ADA Section 504, and then IDEA, again, if they're K-12. So here's a few examples. Accessibility are things like captions on all videos by default. I see people saying, I use captions to reinforce what I'm watching. For my ADHD. I also have ADHD, so I've never really connected it to that, but maybe. But particularly if there's shows where people have thick accents, or there's going to be lots of like names and terms I'm unfamiliar with, like Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, war movies. I need that because I can't hold all those things in my working memory. I can't remember the names. Accommodations, though, are things like providing a Braille textbook, a copy of notes or Scribe, and extended time on the tests. So we think about that connection to UDL. Accessibility directly aligns. UDL promotes inclusive design. UDL comes from the perspective of proactively considering what barriers might be there and how we can alleviate them. Accommodations are supported by UDL. They can help support UDL. They don't replace it. So there's no way to just universally design something enough to never need accommodations. That's not the goal. But if we can make things as accessible as possible and as universally accessible as possible, then the fewer accommodations we might have to make. So that's why I have here accessibility over accommodations. Again, if someone has legally entitled to accommodations, you have to provide them. But let's focus on maximizing accessibility because we're going to get kind of the most bang for our buck there. It can reduce the need for individual requests for support everyone in the classroom. So again, I don't have a hearing impairment. I can hear videos, but I prefer to read along with it. It also does help me pay attention. You can save time and resources. So particularly think about the note takers or scribes, rather than providing a note taker as an accommodation. What if we use assistive technology that can do auto transcripts? So for example, Zoom that does auto transcripts here at the bottom, or PowerPoint, there's many other tools that can take then an audio file, derive the text from it, and then there are all kinds of tools that once you have that transcript, you can put that into, I mean, as simple as ChatGPT, but you can put it into other platforms that we'll explore across this webinar series to create notes, to create study guides, to create anything your heart desires. Accessibility is also important because for legal compliance and institutional risk reduction. The benefit is that it also aligns with the UDL framework. So maximizing accessibility benefits everyone. We can think about it, accessibility in our course design and instructional materials, the assessments and assignments, as well as our communication with students and how they communicate with us, making sure that there's multiple ways that we can make things available to students. We're trying to overcome barriers so that as much of their cognitive energy and effort and your cognitive energy and effort can be on teaching and learning and not other things. So a quick recap of the UDL framework is that it is based on 3 networks of how your brain works. It addresses the why of learning or our motivation, the what of learning, and the how of learning. So we want to consider all 3 of these sort of dimensions of learning to think about how to proactively plan for variability in our classrooms. So this is all based on, by the way, UDL 2.0. CAST, the nonprofit organization behind UDL, has generated an updated version, UDL 3.0, but I am choosing to stay with UDL 2.0. So there are 3 primary networks, again, that recognition, strategic, affective. And so the guidelines, we want to be flexible in how we present what we want the students to teach. So this means not only lecture, not only video, having video with the captions, right? So are we presenting things in different ways? Are we giving flexible options for how students learn and show what they know? Does everyone have to write everything down on a worksheet? What is the point of worksheets? I would love to give a webinar on just titled No More Worksheets. And then are there flexible ways to sustain motivation and why they're learning? Okay, so now going into sort of the back half of the presentation, I hope that this does not feel like drinking from a fire hose, but it might. Honestly, creating it felt that way. I don't know, like, how do I distill so many things? And when it's always changing, there's always new things coming out. So my recommendation, similar to any previous, I think I've said this probably in every webinar, is I want you to think about what are 1 or 2 things that you could take away and maybe try tomorrow. And then what other things can you just hold on to? So you'll have a recording of this webinar, you'll have the slides, and you can come back and explore. But I encourage you to not feel too overwhelmed with all the different things I'm showing you, because then you won't implement any of it. So this first video is talking about generative AI for everyone. And so again, if you hopefully if you watched the first webinar, you know what generative AI is.
Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into an incredibly important topic: how generative AI is enhancing accessibility for everyone. Whether you're a content creator, a business owner, or just someone interested in technology, this video is for you. Key accessibility enhancements with generative AI transcripts and captions. Generative AI is revolutionizing the way we create and share content. It helps us generate transcripts, captions, and alt text, making our digital content accessible to everyone. Imagine a world where everyone, regardless of their abilities, can enjoy your content. Transcripts and captions ensure your content is accessible to everyone, including those who rely on screen readers or have hearing impairments. Top tools: Otter.ai, real-time transcription. Descript, audio, video editing with transcripts. Capwing, easy video captioning. Sonix, automatic transcription with multi-language support. Text-to-speech, TTS, technology. One of the standout features of generative AI is personalization. It allows for tailored messaging and formatting based on individual user preferences. This not only enhances user experience but also promotes inclusivity. Remember, improving accessibility benefits everyone, including those who prefer audio over text or need larger fonts. TTS converts text into spoken words, making content accessible for users with reading difficulties. Top tools: Amazon Polly, lifelike voice synthesis. Google Cloud text-to-speech, versatile voice options. Natural Reader, easy-to-use personal text-to-speech tool. IBM Watson text-to-speech, highly customizable voices. Voice search optimization. Voice search is becoming increasingly popular. To optimize for it, create content that mimics natural language queries. Generative AI can assist in generating topics and content that effectively answer common conversational search questions. Welcome back.
All right, several of these we wanted to give you sort of a taste for, and I intentionally chose that one because of how terrible that voice is. So, Janaya, thanks for, or Jania, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, your name wrong. Thanks for pointing that
Said it
out.
right the first time, Janaya.
Thanks. One of the huge advances in technology and AI is more natural speech. It's, in some ways scary that AI can generate sound bites and clips that sound exactly like a person talking. Their same cadence and everything. It's a little scary, but also it's pretty amazing. And that now, because I think about when I was teaching middle school in 2010 or 11, whenever the iPad first came out. And I was so excited at the access that would give my students for audiobooks and being able to listen to things. But the voice was terrible, and they wouldn't use it. The students weren't using it, and I didn't blame them. That was not very exciting to listen to. So we kind of went back to our books on tape, books on CD. But now this is so much more engaging and exciting. So I'm gonna, before I get to some more commercial tools, so none of which is an advertisement. Some things I'll show you are free, some have free versions, some are paid. But I want to first start with just looking at accessibility features that are built in within the most common products that we use. So looking at Google Microsoft and Apple.
Hangouts Meet lets you video conference with anyone around the world, which means there's a lot you can do with it. Hosting study sessions, parent-teacher conferences, guest speakers who are far away, or even other classes that are studying the same content. It's also really useful as an accessibility tool for students who can't actually travel to the classroom for whatever reason. In some schools, they can even put a webcam and a screen on top of a rolling robot, so students with anxiety, medical or mobility issues can still feel like they're part of the school environment without physically needing to be there. To use Hangouts Meet, go to meet.google.com and start a new meeting. You can add meeting attendees by email or calendar invite, or you can copy the link and send it to them some other way, like a text. I'll add my colleague now. There she is. So once you're in the meeting, you can use keyboard shortcuts to navigate or use your device's accessibility features like magnification or screen reading. Live captions is a good example. Just click the CC caption button and, as you can see, whatever you're saying will be automatically transcribed on screen for everyone in the meeting. This can help a lot with students who have difficulty hearing or paying attention to lectures. For more tips on how to use Hangouts Meet, go ahead and click on the link below, and feel free to leave a comment on this video with any ideas of your own. Thanks for watching.
So what I want to point out there is, I mean, post-COVID, we all know, like, oh, there's these video conferencing softwares, but you can use it for the people who are in class. You don't have to be physically distant. Obviously, we've probably a lot of us had that experience of if you have multiple people on the same like Zoom or Google Meets call at the same time, you've got to mute and turn off sound and things like that to not get feedback. But when, for example, a student might need captioning to pay attention, to support or accommodate a hearing impairment, maybe it's a language proficiency issue, you can still turn on captions and have captions going all the time. So when I taught a class this morning, my PowerPoints automatically have captions going, even though we're live, we're there. If maybe the student, depending on your arrangement, that they wouldn't be able to see that, if you start a Google Meet or Zoom, share your screen, and they can see their captions at the bottom. They could zoom in to see the content on the board, essentially on their screen. So there's ways that we can reimagine the use of the common conferencing softwares. Okay, so I have one other, a screen reader. And again, this is when I think back to the students and the screen readers that I was trying to use in the mid-2000s. This is like far beyond what I could have imagined.
The Chromebox Screen Reader is a Chromebook feature that reads aloud whatever text is on your screen. This is really helpful for low vision and blind students, but I also think this can be a great tool for struggling readers and kids who are learning English as their second language. Chromevox is built into Chromebooks, so let's take a look at how it works on docks in G Suite. If you're using a Chromebook, all you have to do is press Ctrl-Alt-Z, and you can turn the feature on or off.
Chromebox spoken feedback is ready.
So if we type a sentence or move through the document, we'll hear the text spoken aloud.
Tissues are formed by cells of a certain kind that join together to perform a collective function.
If you want to choose exactly which text to hear, you can open the Chromebox options by pressing the search key plus O and then O again, and turning on Speak Text under the mouse. This can be helpful for students with some remaining vision who still prefer to use the mouse but benefit from screen reading support. To open the Chromebox menu, press Search period. You can press the left or right arrow to switch between the menus. To open a specific item, press the up or down arrow and press Enter. I'll select Jump, which gives me a list of all the Chromebox shortcuts. And that's it. What I really love about this tool is that it's built into every Chromebook, so it's 100% available right out of the box. No extensions or anything, which means you can start using it right away. For more information about Chromevox, like how to use it with the rest of G Suite, you can click on the link below. Thanks for watching.
So even if you aren't using Chromebooks, you can still download Chrome and use it as an extension. Okay, so we've got Google. Now let's look at Microsoft.
Hi, I'm Kimberly, the Director for the Center of Leadership and Innovation at St. Thomas School. Today I'm going to show you how to make your PowerPoint lessons more accessible with built-in accessibility features in Office 365. We're going to cover the following 3 free tools and how they work: Auto Alt Text that automatically describes images, live captions and subtitles in PowerPoint, and Accessibility Checker. Whenever you paste an image into PowerPoint, it automatically provides an image description or alternative text. This is important for visually impaired students who are using assistive technology like a screen reader. To review or change the alt text, right-click to open the alt text pane. Our alt text reads, "A turtle swimming underwater." Now, I always double-check accessibility by using the Accessibility Checker, which is located in the Review tab. My favorite part is when you click on an error, it takes you directly to the slide that needs fixing. Here, the Accessibility Checker is telling me I need to add a slide title to help everyone know the topic of the slide. You can also add real-time subtitles to your presentation by turning on Presentation Translator. Subtitles are critical for students who are hearing impaired, as well as English language learners and anyone else needing extra help with following along. And that's it. Now you know how you can make your classroom more accessible. Hi.
All right. One more sort of generic accessibility features video, and then we're going to get into some specific tools.
Welcome to 5 awesome accessibility features in Microsoft 365. In this video, we are going to look at 5 accessibility features that are available within Microsoft 365's premium apps and how they benefit those with accessibility needs, no matter if they are permanent, temporary, or situational, and also how everyone can use these and benefit from them too. So let's get straight into it and look at these amazing features right now. First up, we have Dictate. Within premium apps, switch on Dictate, and rather than typing, you can then talk to your desktop and it will start recording what you are saying, but in text form. So if you watch your screen while you're talking, you will see your desktop typing away like some kind of magic. This is just the power of Dictate converting your text to speech. Let me show you how to access it. I'm using Word here, and to switch on Dictate, find the Home tab along the top ribbon, and here you will find Dictate.
Now, while you are connected to the internet, switch it on and chat away.
This is perfect if you struggle with something like dyslexia, are unable to type, or attempting to multitask, which I'm sure we all struggle with at times. But with Microsoft 365, you can absolutely do it. Next, we have Read Aloud. With Read Aloud in Word, whatever you have written or dictated to your device, Read Aloud will read it back to you, allowing you to hear what is written. This is a great feature for those that struggle to process written text, have partial sight or blindness, or just want to check how a document sounds. You can find this in Word in the Review tab. Just click Read Aloud and listen.
This is a great feature for those that struggle to process written text, have partial sight or blindness, or just want to check how a document sounds. You can find this in Word in the Review tab. Just click Read Aloud and listen.
This can also be found in other premium apps as well as OneNote and Microsoft Edge in Windows 11. Some people have a learning accessibility need, like dyslexia for example, which can affect people's ability to process text. This means that changing the color of the page can be super helpful with processing all that is on the page. This is where Immersive Reader comes in, and it's found in the View tab of Word, or you can simply type Immersive Reader into the search bar. We can access all the tools available, such as changing the document's color, text spacing, and column width. These tools can help those who need it to consume the document in front of them. For example, the color of the page can be black text on a pink background, which may help some people, whereas white text on a black background may help others. So with all the choices at your disposal, you too may be able to utilize them to make your viewing experience more comfortable. Next up on our list of amazing accessibility features, we have live subtitles. When we talk about accessibility, we don't just mean how it can help you. We are also talking about people that consume the content that you create, whether that be a document, a spreadsheet, or maybe the flyer for your next tea party. And one of the features that really helps is live subtitles in PowerPoint. Not only can you insert closed captions to aid the deaf or hard of hearing community into your presentations, but you can also present with live subtitles switched on. Also, within the settings, you can change the language settings, allowing the presenter to present in English or any of the other available languages and have the subtitles output in any different language they select, meaning that those in other countries can consume the content as well. How amazing is that?
Customize your Xbox Elite Wireless Controller Series 2.
All right, so I hope that that maybe exposed you to some new accessibility features you weren't aware of before, and that potentially you can explore. Okay, so I want to get into a couple specific tools. So one is Microsoft Immersive Reader. This is a native tool, meaning it exists within the Microsoft products. You don't have to install anything in addition. And it allows you to customize the appearance of text on a screen, and it has that read aloud feature. So a few of the accessibility features, there's text-to-speech, adjustable text size and spacing. There's focus mode, which this video will show you. There are some grammar tools included, theme customization, which can help you with what the the contrast and the colors. And then importantly, I really like the picture dictionary and language translation. So let's watch this video overview of the features. Again, this is already included within Microsoft products, and Microsoft has its own AI Copilot or BART that's helping to power some of these tools.
Immersive Reader is a free reading tool to help people of all ages and abilities. It's built into Microsoft apps like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Edge, and Microsoft Teams. Whatever your reading level, Immersive Reader is there to help. Let's see it in Microsoft Word. Find Word in the Start menu on your desktop or at office.com in your browser. Select View and Immersive Reader. Then choose one of the options. Column width changes line length to improve focus and comprehension. Page color can make text easier to scan with less eye strain. Line focus removes distractions so you can read line by line. Text spacing increases the spacing between words, characters, and lines. Syllables show breaks between syllables to improve word recognition and pronunciation. And Read Aloud lets you hear your document as each word is highlighted.
The Amazon rainforest is an expansive forest located in the Amazon basin.
Immersive Reader is built into other Microsoft apps like Microsoft Edge browser and Microsoft Teams, where it looks and feels familiar. Find Microsoft Edge in the Start menu on your desktop. In Edge, many web pages support the full Immersive Reader view. Click in the top right, then enter Immersive Reader. If there's a word you don't understand, you can see a picture instead. In Reading Preferences, switch on Picture Dictionary. Then when your cursor changes to a star, select the word to see a picture. Let's see it in Microsoft Teams. Find Teams in the Start menu on your desktop or at office.com in your browser. In Teams, hover over a message with your mouse or tap your finger with a touchscreen device. Then select More Options and Immersive Reader. You can translate one word at a time. Just choose a language in Reading Preferences and turn on By Word. Select a word to see or hear it translated.
I love how many options uh, Immersion Reader provides in one place. And the consistency, because depending on what somebody's disability is, particularly if they have a cognitive disability, being able to, or some sort of traumatic brain injury that's affecting their working memory, learning to use a whole bunch of different tools is going to increase that cognitive load and take even longer for them to get used to using it. So it's nice when you can learn one tool and it can be, you can apply it in multiple different ways. That being said, using a new form of assistive technology or accessibility feature, whether it uses AI or not, does require practice. So just because it might feel clunky the first few times, the best way to get the most use out of it is to just do it, to practice, to try, and to give yourself a little bit of grace, understanding that it's not going to work great the first time, but it'll never be better if you don't try. Okay, so somewhat similar to Immersive Reader, though it doesn't have all the same features, is Natural Reader. It's a text-to-speech software that converts written text to spoken words. There is an online free version, a Chrome version, and then a premium version, like many of these tools have. Biggest benefit is you can choose from a variety of natural sounding voices. You can customize the speed and volume. For me, if I can't speed up the sound on something, I'm probably not watching or listening to it. I listen to almost everything at 1.5 to twice speed. Otherwise, it's hard for me to pay attention because my mind wanders. It does have an immersive reading feature and voice cloning. So with training, meaning you just say a whole lot into it, then you can use your own voice.
Do you want to have text read aloud with AI voices? Natural Reader is a professional text-to-speech program that converts PDFs, documents, images, and more into spoken words. Easily upload your PDFs and start listening.
How AI text-to-speech helps students with dyslexia.
Download any reading into MP3 audio. Take your reading offline and listen anywhere, anytime. Whether you are commuting, walking, or at the gym, you can be listening to your readings. Start listening today with Natural Reader AI text-to-speech.
So another product is that I have a lot of friends who use is Speechify. In Speechify, it is very similar, but it has celebrity voices you can choose from. So there's like Snoop Dogg and Gwyneth Paltrow and Meryl Streep. And so I have a friend who has to commute about an hour to her university. And so she listens to journal articles and student papers and things like that while she drives.
Do you want?
Okay, so now switching away from, solely screen reader type things is Seeing AI. So this is a free app from Microsoft, and it narrates the world around you. And so this is built for people with visual impairment, but it has many benefits to people who don't have a visual impairment, who perhaps have limited English proficiency, a language impairment, auditory processing difficulty, cognitive disability. So it has many, many accessibility features. A very similar app is called Lookout, but that runs on Android platforms.
My take on life is that life is definitely there for the taking. What you put in is what you'll get out. Two things important to me in life are family and music. They both play a huge part in my life. Technology allows me to be my own one-man band. I try to be as independent as I can, and the way that I do that mostly is with low-tech, which is a white cane, and high-tech, which is a phone.
Seeing AI.
Seeing AI is one of the biggest deals in technology, I think, at the moment for visually impaired users. It's an app that you can read almost anything, anywhere with it.
Kilburn High Road. Fashion. Workspace. Mayonnaise.
It has a multitude of functions, and they all work together to produce something that you can use whenever you need it. It might even be considered to be a Swiss Army knife of apps. Of all the parts of Seeing AI, I really do think short text is the biggest of the game changers.
Northwest 6.
Because I've never seen anything like that in any other app before. And I like being in the back of cabs or in buses and pointing it out the window and seeing what I pass on the way to places.
Mobile phone MC 4000 services.
One of the greatest things about short text for me is that if there's no one else in the house, I can sort the post into who's who.
Mrs. K. Louis. Mrs. Kirsten Louis.
So I don't open my wife's post and she doesn't get cross with me. Package.
Yo, man, like Andre.
My man Alex.
Good.
One fella.
Blessed.
£20.
That's really cool.
Currency is a very useful channel because sometimes it's very difficult to know what notes actually are. So with Currency, I can detect that straight away.
£5.
Job done. 2025.
Well done.
Scene preview.
Scene is actually really cool. It's quite descriptive, really.
Processing. A store filled with lots of different types of fruit.
I think that's pretty amazing.
Twitterific.
In my view, one of the best parts of seeing AI is the ability to read pictures from social media. Because so many times someone will send me a picture of something that I cannot understand. So I will share that picture to Seeing AI.
Scene. Probably a group of people sitting on a bench in a park.
And then I'll get a description of what it is.
Person. 8-year-old boy with black hair looking happy, 7-year-old girl with brown hair looking disgusted.
And it's changed how I can view social media. It feels like I can participate.
Like, reply.
Far more than I could before.
Thank you for sharing. Handwriting preview.
With Handwriting Channel, I was actually able to read a card from a family member last year. That's the first time I'd actually been able to do that without help.
Dear Dad.
That was
Alice
quite
worked.
good.
We can tell if Jake's been writing well if the handwriting tab can recognize it. That's good proof, really.
We love you, Daddy. XXXXXX.
We've got lots of X's. The effect of having Seeing AI to hand all the time is like having somebody who can see in your pocket.
34-year-old man with a beard wearing a hat looking happy.
Why not?
There is so much more that I can do now that I couldn't before. You've grown up.
I used to be nice.
I think Seeing AI really is a huge technological step down the road, and I hope that we can continue down a road like this for many years to come.
Everybody likes a feel-good example. So Edpuzzle is the next tool, and Edpuzzle's been around for a while. It's not new. I kind of can't believe that there's still a free version. I've been waiting for it, just like Padlet, to only have paid versions or very, very limited free version. But Edpuzzle is a web-based tool that you can use to create interactive video lessons. So this can be something that you create and then assign to students to do outside of class. It could be something they do in class. So for example, if you're wanting to have small group rotations, or if you're pulling students back one at a time to you, and then you can design activities for them to do independently using computers. Probably one of the things that I like the most about Edpuzzle is this ability to add voiceovers to videos. So let's say that there's a video that doesn't have narration, or you want to point out additional things, then you can do that. And then you can also caption those voiceovers. You can input your own videos, but you can also put in videos from other sources like YouTube. And then the AI within it can automatically generate questions based on the video's transcript. So again, now that we are able to use natural language processing, a type of deep learning, so now that we're able to use that to turn anything into language, and then we can use algorithms to predict and make decisions using that language. That's where the AI tools that are like, you can put this YouTube video on and it'll give you 5 multiple choice questions, or a discussion question, or, a matching, or, whatever you want to do. So whether that's part of like the meaningful learning that you're wanting students to come away with, or I often, even for my graduate courses, I include, I generate multiple choice questions or true false polls, things like that, to intersperse throughout videos, just as an attention check, to make sure that, because even I know myself, if I was given a 30-minute video to watch, I would not be sitting here only thinking about that for 30 minutes. So this sort of embedding attention checks help. I want to point out that feature they just had, prevent skipping. So that is one of the things that I like, is that it's got this forced, you can't just go ahead, and that makes those attention checks even more meaningful. Okay, we've got our last two tools. This one is called Sesame Enable. And I just learned about this last week when I was preparing for this webinar. It allows users to control phones using head movements. So if you have a phone with a front-facing camera, then you can control all aspects of your phone. So it gives you touch-free control, voice control and hands-free navigation, customizable sensitivity and personalization, and it integrates with additional types of assistive technology. So as you're watching this, I want you to think, who might benefit from this type of accessibility that's not the intended group? So certainly someone who is a quadriplegic, so has limited use of their limbs, maybe has had an accident and is missing parts of their limbs, certainly this would work for them. But I want you to think about, are there other individuals that this would benefit? Because that's the nice thing about accessibility, is it's available to everyone, even if it's needed by one particular person.
Open sesame. Okay, here we go.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
That's
This
classic.
one's the best one yet.
That's classic.
After my studies, I started developing apps on my own. Got on TV to demonstrate a game we developed that was controlled using your head. And I got a phone call the next day, and the guy said, "Hi, I can't move my hands or legs. Could you make me a smartphone I could use?" And that was Giora, my co-founder in Sesame, and that's how we got started. When Giora called, it was sort of the marriage of both of my worlds. He was really presenting a chance to take everything I knew and tunnel that towards something better for the world, having a real social impact. And that pulled at the right string for me. In a couple of months, we had a working prototype, and then we started meeting more and more beta users. We met people with ALS, or multiple sclerosis, or cerebral palsy, and the more testers we met, we sort of tried to widen the solution to fit for the widest enough possible audience. Initially, we were selling pre-installed phones. What Google did is open up capabilities for us that we could become an app. So now our users could bring in their own device, a smartphone or a tablet, whatever the manufacturer is, and just work out of the box. You download an app and it works. And that for us was life-changing. It became so much simpler.
I have MS, multiple sclerosis, and I have the rare kind that doesn't get better, gets worse. It's like night and day. It helps me connect to people, and I can do Facebook and check out stuff on the internet. I feel like I'm more in control.
It's brought things back into Gary's world. You know, he hasn't always been in a chair. Bringing the phone back gave him ability to connect with his kids and connect with people that he hadn't been talking to for years.
I didn't realize when we started that the same transition we all went through is now happening for our audience. It's mobility. It's the fact you're not stuck in front of the same computer to access the internet or work, so you can sit in the living room with your family. You can go outside and still be connected. Another thing is the size factor. Our users are often bedridden, so to have a smartphone or a tablet that you could read while you're in bed, it's just a different thing. There's so much you can do for people with special needs. There's so much technology you can compensate for, and we really want to see more companies entering this space. Going by research, there are tens of millions of people around the world that could take benefit of our solution. For Sesame, we want to bring as many people into the smartphone revolution so they're not shut out anymore. We're applying technology in places that it hasn't been, or places that have been overlooked. And for our users, it opens up a world of possibilities and connectivity.
Okay, so I think that that's a pretty amazing technology that's available now to anyone who has that Android device. And so I can think about even myself when I had a young child and was nursing or feeding them or up and holding them a lot in the night and just didn't have use of my hands. It would have been really nice to be able to read my book without having to, touch to scroll. All right, the last one is Brain A. Stands for Brain Artificial. It is a multifunctional AI software, so it can do a lot of different things, allowing you to interact with your computer using voice commands in most languages. So it can be used as an intelligent personal assistant, voice recognition, a dictation software, converting speech to text in over 100 languages. And the amazing part is it's integrated with all major large language models, LLMs, which we have talked about are a type of deep learning. So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. And we'll be going more in the next 2 webinars about how to use these large language models. But it's interesting that this can allow you to access this. So this is the final tool.
Braina Pro is a speech recognition software that can dictate in any third-party software or website in 9 languages. These languages are English, Spanish, German, French, Italian, Portuguese, Russian, Chinese and Japanese. Let's have a quick look on how can we dictate using Braina Pro. Click on the microphone button. This will open the speech recognition window. If it asks for permission, click on Allow button. You will notice that the microphone button turns red. This means speech recognition is now ready. Say Dictation Mode on to enter into dictation mode. Minimize the speech recognition window and place the mouse pointer in the software or website field where you want to dictate and start dictating by speaking into your microphone. To change the dictation language, open the speech recognition window and scroll down and click on the Change Language link. Click on the appropriate language in which you want to dictate. Click on the link shown on the screen to download Braina. Thank you.
So this is an older video, the 9 languages to 100, but essentially it would work in the same way where you would then click into the prompt box of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, whichever one you're using, and then you would be able to use this software to be able to ask it questions rather than type. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's webinar on AI for accessibility. I encourage you to join us for next month. We'll be looking at engagement. So thanks again.
Thank you, Jenny. That is some remarkable stuff. I've dabbled a little bit in the world of AI, but Sesame is, I'm going to go explore that one for myself. That's remarkable. To everyone on behalf of ACE of Florida, I want to thank you for your participation today. I have dropped into the chat a link to the session evaluation form, as well as an Adobe PDF for the fillable professional development form to give you credit for your hours, and additionally my email address if you have any questions. You'll be receiving information about the next webinar probably in the next couple of weeks. Until then, Jenny, again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you all. Thank you very much for your participation. Have a good evening.